fun episode for me because it's the whole family here. Well, not the whole family, but we have a little one here. Waverly Joy, who is very joyous today. So it's a wonderful day for her to join because that is not the norm for a terrible two. But I'm happy. And then Delano, are you happy to be here?
Of course.
Okay. So when we do family episodes, we're having deep discussions. And I'm just not even going to do a lead in. I am going right into this because it's top of mind. But I have been asked recently about how I can call myself a scientist and still believe in God. And I am intrigued by the question because people know that I have a project called EPIC. And so we are empowering parents in community churches. That's what EPIC stands for. And we are talking about bringing STEM education to church. And people are like, is there not a rub? Those two don't go together. So I want to talk about that today because our entire family is focused on STEM and faith. Like those are two things that are important to us in our household. So I'm curious, is there a rub between being in STEM and faith?
No.
Why are you making such a crazy face? You act like this isn't like a real conversation.
It's a real conversation, but they do realize that STEM, like, they use STEM to
do
build
what?
the building that they have worship.
Okay, so a lot of people are not logically thinking. So you went very practical logical, right? Like we use math and we use skills to help build and erect buildings, right? Like that is a thing.
Like if you're looking at a building, like God is not
God himself was a carpenter.
He was,
Well,
but
Jesus.
he's not putting buildings in place. He's giving people the STEM skills to, like, for one. So I think it's a good. Well, it's not a good. Well, let me never do that.
What?
Because they have a question. But if you start at the basic root of what science is, science is all around us.
Yes.
And so before you ask how those are contradictory, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to worship in a building that's built off of science? How are you reading programs on using technology to print those programs that are based on science? How are you looking at the screens on the TV when that's based in science and STEM? It's all around you, which is part of one of the benefits of the EPIC project.
Okay. I'm not the right person to like argue with you about that. But I don't think that they're thinking as practical as you are.
No, I know what they're talking about. They're like,
okay, so
they're
what do you
talking
think they're
about
talking
vaccines and do we believe in Big Bang and
I don't think anyone brought up vaccines.
they absolutely.
But creation is something that people do talk about, and how our bodies evolve over time.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we can't believe in both.
Yeah, I think. Well, this might go off script from the STEM conversation.
Okay,
but
that's
think
okay.
God created everything and created us.
Right.
But I think we were created. If you're a believer, you answer the question about how we look different because God created us in a position where we could evolve.
Yes.
There's a reason why people in Africa, their skin is different, look different than the people who grew up in Europe.
Yes.
That's
Scandinavian.
That's rooted in science because the body adapts to the location you're going to be in. And so I don't separate that from God because I still believe that God created man.
Okay. But it has the ability to evolve.
Yes, but there's still God's hand in that. So
Yes,
I don't
he made
think
the
God is
mechanism
saying
for it
like
to be possible.
Yeah, God is not saying, okay, I need you to evolve this way if you're here. I think God put us as I don't want to call us a machine, but we were built as an entity that could evolve.
Yes.
And that is God's hand on it. And so I think that's a whole broader discussion of, I think God is not coming down every 20 minutes and resolving an issue. God gave us everything we need.
I do think that people romanticize who God is for their own pleasure and benefit. Because it is so hard for us to fathom that there is something that is bigger than us in the universe, which is where the conflict arises. We're the ones assigning certain attributes to his ability, right? Like even the fact that I'm even using the word ability, like people are assigning human attributes to someone who is not human, or a thing
Right.
that is not human. And because we can't think as big and broad as God actually is, it limits us. So our limited thinking is why we think that there's limited ability of God. And I say that honestly because people talk about like, oh, well, if God was this thing, why wouldn't he just why wouldn't he intervene, right? When they talk about natural disaster, when they talk about the fact that there are people living in poverty, the fact that we have inequity and racism and any other ism in the world, like why wouldn't God intervene? And I think people forget that God had already promised us free will. He had promised us that he would stop intervening because he used to. Like, you got to
Yes.
read the text. He used to
Yes.
intervene all the time. He's like, what are y'all doing? Stop doing those things. Like, be better. And then he realized, like, what am I doing?
I feel like God gave a reset, and he said, "Okay, I'm not doing a reset again."
But now we're in the middle of it, which is making people feel like there is no God, or God isn't who we think he is because he should care about us more and not let people suffer. And the thing that I want to pose to other people is this is probably why I have so much faith and I believe in STEM. I truly believe God gave us all the ability we need to take care of each other. But because we have free will and we have people who are not understanding who they are and what it is to be in community with one another, evil prevails or is present, and we don't actually take care of one another. The fact that we live in a capitalistic society, which is a whole nother rabbit hole, should let you know how much we don't care about each other. Because there's no world where we should be oppressing a group of people or telling them that they have to work for an unlivable wage and work in that space for over 40 hours a week and not be able to feed their family. We don't care about people. But we have the ability to change it. No one is forcing that system on us. We chose that system. We could change that system if we really cared about people. We have all the ability. We make enough food to feed everybody on the planet. No one on earth needs to be a billionaire, literally. If we just took even a half of that, we could spread wealth and that would change the game for millions of people, if not everyone. We are choosing to suffer and
Yeah.
allow people to suffer.
I mean, the fact that
That has nothing to do with God.
no,
That has everything to do with us. We're the ones allowing these things to happen.
yeah, but I think God also empowers people, and then people take from that. Like the the reality is, people get sick, so people have the talents to create medicine, for instance.
Yeah.
So a scientist, a chemist, can create medicine to make our bodies healthy. And I know there's people that will say, well, if you ate this and if you did this, you'll never get sick. The
That's not true.
reality is that over time, your body will, you know, counter some sickness.
Yes.
And so the fact that people are out there using science to help remedy some of those ailments, but then on the other side, you have people who are greedy. And so if I create some kind of medicine to help with your high blood pressure. So that's me using pure science that God empowered me to use.
Yes.
But then somebody else says, you know what? I'm going to charge $1,000 for this pill.
And
And so,
there's my point.
yes,
Greed and evil are literally what are destroying us as humanity. But we like to blame God because we don't ever want to subscribe to the fact that we play a part in why people are suffering. That's not God's job to fix. It's our job to fix. And greed looks different to everyone, but we all have pieces of it. I'm not innocent in that. You're not innocent in that. I think sometimes we let our flesh lead us and not our faith. And that's why we are stuck in this cycle when we think about like the bad things that are happening, right? But the other part is we only think about how God doesn't exist when bad things are happening. But there have been amazing things that have happened that I knew were only given because God existed. Like the fact that I was able to produce life. I know people think that like having children is just as it's a 1, 2, 3, boom, you have a baby. That is not how this works. I was a high risk pregnancy every time. I lost my first daughter in pregnancy, delivered her, held her, didn't get to take her home. Like, it is a miracle that might happen more often than people realize, but it is a miracle to be able to produce life. That is nothing but God. And we used all the science that we knew to try to save her life, and it wasn't enough. That's how I know that God is real, because the fact that I was able to have and produce healthy children. When I look at her, I'm like, you can't tell me that God isn't real. Because it takes so much. Everything has to be working perfectly at the right times to do this. Period. Living proof. Because I've been on the other side of it. And no, that wasn't God's fault that it didn't work. It just didn't work. Because it's a miracle that happens that we take for granted. I don't know. I want to know, when did you realize that God was real? As an engineer, when did you realize that God was real?
I don't know. I don't know if I remember a time when I didn't. I mean, I grew up in the church, so I think I understood what God's role in the world.
You just accepted it? There was no point when you questioned, like, what? I did.
No, I think when bad things happen to you, like when, maybe, when 18 and I knew I wasn't doing everything I was supposed to do in that little time frame between maybe 18 and 20, I would question.
Yeah.
But then I also realized that God helped get me through things. And I think it was probably around 21 when I really embraced, okay, there's, if not every day with his thumb on the scale, that God has already given me what I need. So I always felt like, I felt like I was special, and I think God did that. And I think I've always said there were times when I was giving away my gift, but I think I know what I'm good at, and I think the things that I'm really good at, in terms of impacting people and helping people, I think that's what God put into me and meant for me to do. So I think it was that realization that I can help people and I'm supposed to use my gift to help the next person.
Do you think that our gifts are always to be in service?
I don't know, because I always think about it. I say, okay, so what if your gift is, what if your thing, what if God made you the best janitor in the world? What does that look like? You know,
We're the
because
only ones that subscribe value to the gift, right? Like,
right,
we're the ones that put rank order on things. And I hate that we do that for those who are in like positions of service, like cleaning, and caregiving. Like, we put those positions at the bottom of some type of rank order. But we're the ones that do that. Why
Yeah.
couldn't that be the how we would subscribe to a CEO? Like, why wouldn't we
yeah, I'm not
view
saying
them
it.
the
I
same?
think it's saying like from a position of what society looks at.
Yes.
But if my gift was how I can clean up a building, how do I use that in the world?
I'll be honest, I watched that show Home Edit on Netflix, and that is a true talent and a gift that I do not possess. The ability to organize and to dig through things and make it look how they were able to make it look, like, that really is a true gift. Now, they were able to monetize it to this level of like having a Netflix show, but I agree with you. Like, what if your gift was that you are the best cleaner, organizer, strategist?
And then do you use that gift to align with someone and create products where other people can make their lives easy?
Yes, I honestly do believe this. So this is probably another one of those things that I didn't realize was one of my core beliefs, but is that I feel like we are truly supposed to be in community with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our gifts complement each other's, and if we used them in the proper way, we would all be taken care of because we all have an ability to do something that helps somebody. I can say this for like I cook for my family. I am not the best cook. I'm not going to ever own a restaurant or like a catering bit. Like that's not what I'm great at. But there's some people that are naturally really good at that. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
what they should be doing. Does that not
Mm-hmm.
make sense? Like they should be using their gift to make sure people are fed and fed well. That's
Yes.
not what I should be doing, but that's what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the question of how do we use the talents we have to make the world better. If you look at slavery, if we look at
Ooh,
all of
slavery.
all of the documented things that people that look like us invented,
Mm-hmm.
all the things, because making the situation they were in, they used their talent to make it easier on other people in that era.
Yes.
So like I said, I think a lot of it was out of necessity for people who were forced to work things, and then they said, "Okay, I've learned how to do this, but how can I make it better, not just for myself and for others?" And that goes for things that inventors that I think if you look back at that time, inventions weren't necessarily being made like in this notion of how we do inventions, where somebody's in a research lab. And nowadays, you come with invention, you're a startup, or
Mm-hmm.
you're working in a research lab at your university, or you're working in a research lab, at your company. But back then, innovation came out of necessity.
It came out of necessity and low resources. Like
Yes,
we were believers in low fidelity prototyping.
yes,
Yeah.
and we didn't always get the credit, but we still did it to make
That's a whole
the.
nother racism has always been a thing. And I don't know if a culture, if we're ever gonna unsubscribe to hateful rhetoric. And I can say that because racism is not just people showing up and marching against another group or wearing certain clothing and garb and having hate speech. Racism shows up in spaces where we don't give people the benefit of the doubt, that we automatically assume that you fit the description, or you don't you assume it's always those micro things like you have these assumptions of ability, you over question. That is a fabric of our culture that we have yet to deal with, and we don't want to deal with it because certain people benefit from not dealing with it, which is also part of the reason why we have some of the issues we have. So instead of subscribing and saying that it's God's fault that things are happening, we need to realize as a culture that it's ours.
Mm-hmm.
We do those things. Okay. Waverly, are you upset? You want something? You have something to say and to contribute to the conversation? Oh, she's about to cry. See, the bad things that are happening are Daddy's fault. Come here, girl. Oh, look at that smile. What you gonna say? Nothing. She just wanted to be held. Okay. So, you feel like you grew up in the church, so you've always believed in God. You never had this questioning moment. You had like a period of time when you were like, why is this happening to me? But I'm exactly the opposite. I went to church with my grandma. My grandma is a preacher's kid. I never met her dad, but she's a PK. And I grew up going to church with her. And I just thought it was, I don't want to say silly, but I would be like, why do we have to do this? It felt very like, get up, get dressed, good. Like it was very just methodical, maybe, and not necessarily about building my faith. And I actually grew up upset that I had to spend hours, because let's be real, church was not 2 hours. It was like 4 to 5 hours. I had to spend the whole day at church. And I found it to be annoying. And it made me like want to be like, I don't want this. Because if I have to give this to God all the time, like keep in mind I'm a kid, right? Like if I have to do this, this is crap. And like other people, I see people suffering and they're in here praying every week and their lives have not changed.
Well,
So I did not have that perspective that like, oh, I grew up in church, so I believed in God. No, no, baby, that was not my story.
the one thing I'll say about church, and I think there is some of what you see as a conflict between generations on the view of church.
Okay.
I think if you look at church coming out of the civil rights movement and before that, church was, I don't think it was all about God. I think it was about the culture and giving people a space.
You mean church? It wasn't about God. Well, we went there to worship.
We went to worship, but not. Let me back that up. It was about God, but it also had a community and cultural impact.
Agreed.
So on Sunday, you've been beat down at your job. You know, you've been in many ways made to feel like you were less than.
Yes.
And so you come together on Sunday as a community, and this is where you were empowered.
I completely agree with that.
It
I
didn't
learned how
matter
to
where
vote.
you worked. You could be you were the deacon in the church. So regardless of your
Oh.
job, being a deacon in the church,
It meant something.
It meant something.
It still means something. Let's not reduce it.
Yeah, but a lot of churches don't even have deacons anymore.
Is that true?
Yeah,
We still go to
a lot
old
of
black churches.
a lot of churches nowadays they have deacons, but they don't play the same role.
They don't play the same role. And it's probably not viewed the same because there's high distrust. That's what they have in common too. There's high distrust in the faith community. Have you followed that hashtag? Hashtag church hurt? The stories that people have shared about why they stopped following is because these things that happened to them in church. It is so sad and it's sickening. Not surprising though, which bothers me that I'm not shocked. But that hashtag church hurt, people have stories for days about like the bad things that happened to them while they were in fellowship. So there's high distrust in church and faith because of those types of things that they've experienced in these church communities. And then there's high distrust in science. I feel like the distrust in science went up because of COVID. And so, and we were already on a shaky ground, but then COVID happened and it just plummeted. And so those two things are in common. High distrust in science and high distrust in faith because people can't see past their own selves, their own suffering, to realize that you probably are still here because of the miracle of God and the spirit of protection that's around you. You're focused on the wrong thing. It's like having a view of gratitude because you don't even know what you're being saved or protected from, even though it might feel annoying or feel inconvenient. I would tell you to flip your view and think about like, man, what am I being protected and saved from for these annoying things to keep happening to me? Like if you're perpetually late, some of that's personal accountability, but some of it might be, oh, you were late because there was this accident. And if you would have been there at the time, you would have been part of the accident too. Some of the science distrust is you aren't reading enough. Like you need to understand how things work because that is not different from having faith. It is understanding that you have some personal accountability and understanding how things work and how the world works. They come together in this beautiful pattern, like this. It's just a wonderful interlocking system. And that's why things are where they are. The distrust is just wild to me.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to say is yeah?
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts on this. I remember being on an airplane, looking out the window and being like, if you ever look around and you can see the world, there's no way that you don't believe in a higher being. And if you realize how much we do not know, that is how I feel like you have to know that there's a higher calling.
Right.
We haven't even explored what do they tell us? Only 10% of the ocean, if that.
Right.
That means there's 90% of the ocean that covers most of Earth is unexplored and we don't understand. That to me sounds like God's hand.
Yeah, I think God's hand is all around us. I think again, I think God has already given and shown us what we need. I think we try to put too granular a lens on what God is supposed to be doing.
So we're short-sighted.
Yes.
Hopefully we can own that and realize the miracles that are happening and around us every day. The fact that our bodies work, we only know how our body works because we do have this spirit of science to figure it out. But the fact that it does it without our knowledge, so many things happening in our body that we don't even realize, should let you know that that's how science and faith go together. Because I don't go to bed stressed out if my body is going to work. But no amount of science made that happen.
Right.
God made that happen. But the science lets me know how some of it works. We don't know how it all works, but how
Right.
some of it works.
Correct.
That's my 2 cents. Okay. You know we don't end episodes without playing games.
Okay.
So what game do you want to play?
Okay.
We're going to do this or that, the church version.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes. Always ready.
Are you? Okay. I'm going to ask, because we were listening to gospel on the way in. It's like our favorite genre with the kids because they like to belt gospels. This is the Day is Waylon's favorite song right now. But he doesn't say This is the Day, the kids version. He said, Mom, play This is the Day, the Jesus version, which is Fred Hammond's version.
Yes.
So do you like Fred Hammond versus Hezekiah Walker? Because we play both of those a lot.
Oh, Hezekiah Walker. And I like.
You are lying.
No,
you
no,
play
no.
Fred Hammond every time. If there is a choice, you don't get on this podcast and start lying.
No, so you haven't paid attention when Waylon and I are in the car doing the praise break.
There's praise breaks that Fred Hammond has too.
Yes, but the song praise break.
The song Praise Break is y'all's song.
That's your son and I in the car together.
Okay.
And I may get in trouble because Fred Hammond's from Detroit, so I mean,
You are a traitor. You will not be allowed back in those Detroit streets. Are you, 2 seconds, you can change your
I'm
answer.
not gonna change my answer. Now, yeah, I'm not gonna change my answer.
Okay.
I love them both.
You love them both, but I made you pick this
Yeah,
or
and
that.
I picked.
Okay, here's another one. Bible study or Sunday message?
It depends.
On what?
I would say it depends on what you're trying to. If you're trying to learn and be better, I would say Bible study.
Which one do you prefer? This is this or that.
A good preacher, Sunday.
And I like Bible study. I would go to Bible
Let me
study
stop.
without what? Are you trying to what? Say what you got to say.
No, because this is on TV. Yo, Pat, the preacher can
Make or break your Sunday message.
absolutely. If you just get up there and say hi and
Okay,
start
if
hollering
you had
and
the-
then holler for 45 minutes,
Hooping and hollering? You don't like hooping and hollering?
if it's tied to, I believe in teach me something. That's the other part of church, and I think I'm different. I want to know, and I said this in the pulpit, I
What?
want a message that's going to keep somebody from going upside somebody's head on Tuesday in the lunch break room.
Okay.
I think too much
you can
of
get that
too,
from. Okay, go ahead.
That was my message.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you mad because they stole your sandwich. But you don't know that they picked your sandwich because they know you the church folk.
Yes.
And they only been working there for weeks, so they don't have no money. So they figure, well, if I take the church folk sandwich, then they not gonna yell at me, and the church folk is the one that yell at you the worst.
That's true.
But I also think Sunday was supposed to be that lift you up and make you feel good. So it's coming out of that civil rights era.
Yeah.
That's what church was. Church was supposed to give you a motivational pep talk to last you till you come back.
To the next Sunday.
And I think in some cases, so many people got in, and they've talked about this before. There's so many people who become entertainers on Sunday that you literally an hour later can be like, what was the message today? I don't know, but I feel good.
Okay.
And so I'm saying,
So
we've been to a church where it felt like that was how the church drifted.
Yes.
And so that's why I don't want to get too much into it.
Okay.
Because somebody may be watching this.
Okay. This is an easier one. Bible app or physical Bible?
Oh, Bible app.
Really?
Yes.
That actually shocked me. I didn't think
I
so.
can reference things. I can make quick notes.
My Bible
I
app.
can link this to that, and I can.
Oh, so you're in there working.
Yeah, I'm tying it together.
See, I do the same thing. I highlight verses. I even take notes to a ridiculous level, right? Like during Sunday message. Because one time, Pastor reused the same sermon. And I said, sir, I track everything in the Bible app. I have your sermon and notes. I could have got up there and preached for you. He was cracking up, but I was upset. I need you to come fresh because I already heard this before.
Well, 52 weeks a year is a lot. Sometimes, you have to, give it a couple years. You run it back, think no one will remember.
Okay. It was too soon. And my notes are dated. So remember that too. So if I'm ever at your church, just know I am tracking the verses you use. I'm taking notes, how you explained it. So you're going to have to, keep it going. You got to change it up a little bit for me. Okay, so last one, which is funny to me because I know how he really feels about this. Praise dancers or mimes?
Well, are we talking about in general ones that actually know what they're doing?
No, I didn't.
I would say praise dancers.
You don't like the mimes? Okay, we love all forms of worship. Some just seem a little bit better than others.
Well, I feel like at least with praise dancing, there's someone who can actually dance. That
Now,
can teach
that's
them
true.
how to. I feel with mimes, like not enough people do mimes for us to. You just saw some on video and you mocking that, so I don't know. Let me not talk about the mime industry, but
All I can say.
there are plenty of times when I'll sit there and be like, "Oh, that's not good."
Do you say that in church?
I say that to myself.
I have literally sat there. On Family Feud, they like clap for the people. Good answer, good answer. I'm like, no, I don't feel like that at church. I feel like we need to stop being so supportive sometimes and tell people that's not their ministry. Why don't we try a different thing? Because I've seen some dancers that can't dance. But because they're dancing for the Lord, we kind of tell them that they're good.
I think Isaiah was good at the mime ministry.
I don't remember watching Isaiah mime.
He
I've
did.
seen steppers. I've seen steppers.
Why were they stepping in church?
Okay, I'm puzzled. I don't know what to say.
Okay.
I've seen it all. My favorite would be praise dancing, though.
Yeah.
Especially when I saw the classically trained dancer actually do a routine, and I was like, okay, it took me there. But that's not normally what we see, but praise dancing, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and being on the podcast again with me today. And Waverly, are you going to say anything? Oh. What? Did you drop something? It's right here. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Okay, or not. What? Say bye-bye to the people. They're listening to you. Say bye-bye. Or not. Okay. Next time, we'll see you on another podcast of Princess of STEM Diaries.